I saw the episode title, Dryads, first, and I was like, if they're going straight D&D Dryads, that's just that's an ancient plant woman. Are you just going to kill and eat an ancient plant woman? I'm not sure this is going to be okay. And then they first show the first appearance of the Dryads on screen is straight up pornographic. And I'm like, oh God, this is just getting worse. I like the idea that they're actually just flowers of a kind of carnivorous plant. Yeah. I think that's a great way for them to have taken it. I think it's original. Thank God they went that way.
Dragon claw, wing and scale. Come now, let's examine a tale of the greatest beast ever considered. Another episode of Big Flying Lizards.
Bryce, I have something important to talk to your community about.
Oh, no.
This may actually be it for your podcast. You might be done at this point.
If we made it past dog dick, I don't know. But continue.
We didn't make it past dog dick. Anyway.
Okay.
To bring everybody up to speed on what I'm talking about, I'm going to need to show everyone a quick clip. So let me just get that set up.
Guys, we're getting visuals.
Yes. This is an audio-visual medium. Sorry, podcast listeners. You're just going to miss out on like 30% of this.
Since it targets people, it's either a carnivore or an omnivore. It's too much of a coward and lacks the strength to attack directly. Visibility's low, and it's cold here. So it can withstand the cold and relies on smell and hearing. Downwind is that direction. The enemy's waiting for us to wear ourselves out. I doubt I'll hit it by recklessly swinging my sword around. So what should I do? Kensuke's gotten pretty quiet. He might die from the cold. Guess I'll have to take a page from the enemy. Time to turn the tables and make the hunted like the hunted. It's been a while, but I'll do that.
Meanwhile, Bryce chokes to death live on TV. Okay, now, I understand if most of you didn't catch that, but it was very, very important. And now I'm going to turn a choice over to the community here, because there's detail in that scene that I just showed you in that little clip that could be the sole lasting cultural influence that this podcast has. All right, so here's the choice I need you to make. Option 1.
What demon are we summoning, Colby?
That's my personal favorite. Option 2.
I'm not going to lie. If this is not a good, I feel like this is actually a great time for us to talk about that. When he did, I did not pick that up that he did that. But this second, like I watched this episode, I think 2 days ago, and I was like, what the actual living fuck is he doing?
All right. Option 3, straight from the most popular sounds off TikTok. A little sexy Laios dancing there, you know? Okay, and final option, and what immediately jumped into my head when I saw him limbering up like this.
Yep.
This is it!
All right, so chat, I need your choice of Sax Guy, Funk, Pedro, or Shoebody Bop. Hey. And the version that I end up with is getting posted pretty much immediately.
Okay, guys, you have your homework. Go ahead, comment in there. And you know what? That's going to be like, what is he doing? Like, what is he? Like, it's not even like he was getting ready to grapple. He literally just got on all fours and just. It'd be one thing if he was like, me, 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 me. What's his rest with anything?
Well, the thing that I love most about this is that they planted a seed that I missed my first watch through of one of the early episodes. And, they were talking, I think it was two of the characters talking. They were like, what do you even like about Laios? What's his deal? And his sister was like, well, he does a really good dog impression. And then they do not comment on that. They don't come back to that at all for the rest of the show until this moment.
Which, this is going to be just an extended opener, because I feel like this is actually a good time to talk about how 5e does a poor job with, the backgrounds and the stuff that's, pre-given. I feel like, yeah, we've used it as, guidelines, but you were more interested in, all right, what's your name? What's your number? Who's your daddy? Just asking these sort of questions. And I feel like this is one of those things. It's like with Brant, he had the crippling tobacco addiction. That was him.
Uh-huh.
And if you just read he's addicted to tobacco, you're like, oh, he just is always smoking. I'm like, no, he is so addicted that if he does it, he starts going through withdrawals, killing people. Uh-huh. And with Laios, he can do a perfect dog in first impression, which who would have thought? Who would have thought that would have come in handy? I'll be honest, I didn't. But on that note, welcome to Big Flying Lizards, a dragon movie and television podcast. I am your host, Bryce Wilson. I am joined by, again, week 3 by Mr. Colby Ford. Colby.
That's me.
Yeah, it's a you. Colby, how we doing?
Pretty good.
I feel like we got some jazzy music going. We got all that. I am running off of fumes because, it'd be like that. So it's going to be, guys, you guys thought last time was a loopy podcast. I think
Bryce has spent his last several hours doing IT.
Yes, I've been doing IT for the last several hours. I was editing the last night's podcast until about 5:30 in the morning. And so I am ready. I am here. And we are going to be having an excellent podcast on Delicious in Dungeon or Dungeon Meshi, which we are going to be going ahead and talking about episodes 13 through 18. And Colby, I'd love to get your initial thoughts on these 6 episodes.
Yeah, things are changing as we get into this set of episodes. This feels like a very different show. We get maybe one at most of those big spreads of food. We're getting a little bit less of the comedy. That my clip aside, that moment was excellent. It was perfect. And episode 18 doesn't feel like it actually exists in this section. It could have been earlier on. But anyway, yeah, it feels like here we are kind of putting aside some of the jokes, some of the food wackiness, and we're getting into a plot. And to a certain extent, I miss the jokes and stuff. But I also, if it was nothing else, if we never got to any plot, I would be disappointed.
For sure.
And we're seeing some real complications and consequences for the characters' actions, which I'm always a fan of.
I feel like this particular arc that we're in is the arc where they beat who they thought was going to be the big bad. Like we talked about last week, there's always somebody who they think is the big bad. I shouldn't say always, but you think that there is somebody who's that person you're fighting, and you're going up against it, and you find out, oh, they're just a lackey, or oh, they're actually an idiot. They're just a useful idiot. I often think back, again, I know you referenced the show last week, so that gives me permission to reference it again this week, but Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, in episode 2 or 3, they fight against the priest and who has the Philosopher's Stone, and you think this guy's like a badass villain, and it comes to find out oh no, he's just a alchemist who was given a very powerful weapon, and take that away, he's really nothing. He's a coward, and the real villains actually toss him aside very quickly after that. And I feel like this is a great spot. This is doing a great job at demonstrating just how out of the party's league they are actually with this villain. I know I was talking about last week that I really don't like a villain that's holier than thou, and I'm going to stick to that. Like, I really am still not a big fan of it. I'm always either just unapologetically they're like somebody who knows what they're doing is wrong, but they're like, this is for the greater good. This whole like, no, what I'm doing is actually right, and you just are not big brained enough to understand what's going on. I'm like, no, that sounds like you need therapy.
Yep, writing a character like that and playing a character like that both have the same problem, which is they are limited to how smart you actually are, which for most of us is a real limitation. Most people who think that they're geniuses are nowhere close. I include myself in that.
No, and also with just this villain in particular, like, again, I think we both stopped watching about the same time. So we both are sort of in the dark on, I think this is roughly about where we made it last time, like where we're cutting off. So we're going to be wrapping up this show with some brand new experiences. And I think they also have just released a trailer for season 2. So that's just right around the corner, and we'll have to discuss that when it comes back. But just particularly, I think it's a very interesting trope that comes up where the party defeats the big boss. Defeats the big boss, and then there's sort of a rest period, and all of a sudden, boom, you called the manager, and the manager comes in, and then you realize like just how out of the, because I even remember when Marcel is like trying to fight with magic, and the elf just opens a spell book and just summons like blood little dragons, and she's like, oh fuck, well that's not happening.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of I think setting up this mad mage as I don't know, setting up their power level. Again, having not watched to the end yet, I could be completely wrong about that. It could be that they decide that this person had... But I liked the touch where they were battling, and Marcel is just like, I understand the magic that elf is doing. I can read it. I just can't keep up with it. Which is actually a great place for a D&D villain to be. Your party understands what they're doing, but it's at a different level.
I don't know if this is it's our show. We can control the pace of it. So I'm just going to say we're going to go with this right now. I am concerned that they are going to do a whole, like, I don't know, like, the villain is clearly outmatched the entire party, even if the party is like brings in more people. I just do not see a way for them to overpower. The only thing that I see them doing, and actually, like, I see them taking 2 routes on how they will eventually defeat. Well, I guess 3 routes. Route number 3, they don't defeat the Mad Mage and they all lose. Like that, honestly, I'd respect it a little bit if they ended up doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But option number 1, I think they're going, like, and this is the route I'd prefer. They're going to have another fight with the Mad Mage and realize that they're super outclassed, and they're going to have to go like, okay, we need to find vestiges of diversion, essentially.
Yeah.
What I really don't think they're going to do, I mean, I really hope that they don't do, but I think they're actually going to do this, is they're just going to build up their whole party to have like a ton of people. And it's like, through the power of friendship, we're going to defeat the Mad Mage. And the Mad Mage only has friends they made up themselves. I feel like one thing that they've done a poor job, like it's funny because I complimented them on this in our first episode covering this, is that they represented like leveling up really well. I think they sort of stagnated since episode, because they were like,
Great.
You know how to like cut a mushroom now and kill it quickly. Now it's like, okay, well, they don't really have upgrades on swords. They don't really have upgrades on weapons. They don't have upgrades on magic. Marcel's sort of just been this pyromaniac the entire time. So it's like, it's more like, I remember I can cast Blood Revivify, but that's because I didn't want you guys to know I could cast that. But I don't know.
Yeah, I also have no idea how they're going to handle that. I think they've been planting ways for each of these characters to improve. Laios is making friends with a little monster in his sword. I hope we're going to continue with that thread somewhere. Hope that's going to be paid off. I think Marcel is still going to keep learning this magic and maybe come to some kind of a breaking point with it. Chilchuck might actually fight something at some point.
I don't believe it. Fake news. Like, does he even have weapons?
I think in a later episode, he reveals himself to have a bow. And all he uses it for is to mark a spot for somebody else to hit.
Good on him for it. Good on for it. You see, I low-key, though, have like a little how do I say this? The players that always do play as the terrified characters or like the ones that don't want to fight, I low-key respect because they do find creative ways to get around combat, whether it's like a healer. But like with a rogue in particular, I don't think anyone would ever actually play like a pacifist rogue in a game. Like, I mean,
No.
I'm sure it's happened. Like, it's
yeah, it can be done.
But assassinate and like sneak attack is just such a big part of rogue. It's like trying to play a pacifist paladin. Like, what are we doing over here?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You've got one thing that the whole class is centered around, and you just kind of do that thing. I've seen a pretty cool build that you can do for a like combat medic rogue that takes advantage of using items as a bonus action. So you get a healer kit and the healer feat, and you can run around healing people as a bonus action. So that could be, a pacifist rogue, but you still, you're just swapping one gimmick for another gimmick when I think a lot of players, I mean, unless you're really new and you just really want to get used to doing the one thing and feeling confident with that one thing, which is, a perfectly fine place to be. But when you've played for a while, you're going to want to branch your character out, have them be a little bit more complex. And so I think that's something that, like, I don't know. We keep coming back to the baggage that D&D has and how it's built to keep everyone who played from the mid-70s all the way on to now, 50 years worth of gamers all happy.
Yes.
And you make some compromises.
And here, I'll say this, and I think that I'm not going to say anything that you're going to disagree with. I feel like with 5e is great if for like having the infrastructure. If you have been DMing long enough, if you have just at least the infrastructure to use for creating a game, you can take a lot that's actually out there. Like, there's so much stuff that the fans have made that you can make yourself and just incorporate together. Like, I feel like, yes, it's very complicated with all the different rules, but at the same time, like, it's complicated, but it's also, it's like an Apple phone. Like, there's a lot to it, but it's generally pretty easy. Like, if you at least follow the manual, if you watch the YouTube video.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a big learning curve early on. And then from there, you're talking the same thing to everyone, which is really the big upside is, 75% of people who play any kind of role-playing game know it head to toe.
And then, like, you start going hardcore like we do and creating items, creating spells on D&D Beyond, and you just go and get your ego, like, built, and you're like, yes, I have 600 people that are using my item over here. Achievement unlocked there.
I mean, speaking of which, the pipe smoking addict feat that I made for Brant is my most popular post on D&D Beyond. Really? Yeah. Apparently, there's a lot of people smoking the same leaf as Brant.
No, in this community, in the year of our Lord 2025, I don't believe it. Do you remember the spell that the villain used to capture Ryan's character? Like, made him go to 0, but didn't kill him and then sort of encased him? That's my number one used one, even though it's like a 9th level spell. Like, it's nice. As far as 9th level spells go, it's not that great, but it's a very situational spell. But for that situation, it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like these 6 episodes go all over the place, and I'm sort of just want us to be able to dive in and get into it. So if it's all right with you, I would love to dive into episodes 13 and 14, unless there's anything else you want to cover right off the top.
Let's do it.
Chapter 1, Sorcerer's Games. Episode 13, Fallon, under the elf sorcerer's control, is transformed into a chimera-like creature to track Daigle. Chiltruck convinces the party to abandon Fallon and flee the dungeon, but the vanishing dragon corpse hints that at the sorcerer's manipulation. Episode 14, Sea Serpent. Kybra's party is resurrected by Tansus, but falls prey to a corpse retrieving scam. They deduce Laios' dungeon conquest plan and questions his ethics. Laios' group is trapped in the dungeon with vanishing exits, starving. Shuro saves Kabri from a sea serpent, forming an uneasy alliance. I really liked episode 13.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not care for episode 14 at all.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I feel like episode 14, I felt the same thing. It seems like a big shock to the continuity, and it's the right time to do it.
Yes.
You know, we've just wrapped up a big arc and hinted that we're going on somewhere completely different. But then, you know, dropping into this other party that we've seen kind of in the background, barely noticed a couple of times, and it's hard to give a crap about what's going on with them. There's like moments in that episode, and it did bring up like some interesting questions that I'm interested to see from later in the season if we're building up to anything here. But Kabru and his obsession with Laios and Laios' party is interesting and made me think, oh, are we doing an unreliable narrator kind of thing here? I could see this being, you know, going into a very interesting place if this really is an unreliable narrator and Kabru is how we find out the horrific, despicable things that these people have been doing to survive in this dungeon.
For sure. No, I would love to actually see that, because if you think about it and you go back and just sort of like going back for whatever reason, the first time I watched this show, I thought Laios and his party were just sort of like mid-level, maybe even below average. But we're coming to find out that they're considered like the A team. Like they are actually really good at what they do. But we just have such a view of them that they're all sort of like dorky and like they're off eating. And at the same time, like they have been doing things, and yes, they've had like a comedic twist on it, but they're eating demi-humans. Like we're essentially watching like borderline cannibals go around.
Huh?
And like, we don't even, like, I think we even talked about this last week. It wasn't even the motivation for them to save Fallon. It seemed like it was more interesting for them to actually eat the dragon than it was to, like, save Fallon.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I actually really enjoy seeing them do, like, okay, Laios is actually, like, a dark character. But at the same time, like, I feel like they've been setting him up that he's like sort of just such an idiot. It's one of those more innocent things that like, yeah, he doesn't know quite what he's doing. He's just our big lovable oaf. I don't know. I'd love to be proven wrong and just be like, no, actually, he's a little messed up.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's been that hint and that like, what are we really doing here throughout? And the show has lulled us into this idea of, no, it's all going to be fine. There was a moment where they hinted that there might be some consequences to eating these monsters and then leaving the dungeon. I'm interested to see where they take that. And I'm, you know, this episode made me think this could actually upend everything. This could reframe everything into something pretty horrific, or at least, you know, what they're doing could be, you know, deeply harmful to themselves and those around them. But I don't know, it's anybody's guess whether they're gonna, you know, take that the way I might want them to, or you know, who knows where it's actually gonna end up.
So I need to ask you this. I'm a little confused, and depending on this answer, I think this is actually a really interesting sub conversation to be having. Have they made it back to the surface since?
No, they have not. They have not been back to the surface since they set out. They talk about it for sure, but then they pretty much immediately fall in a hole and end up going only deeper into the dungeon.
Okay. Because for whatever reason, I was thinking for and again, I know this is chapter 3 rather than chapter 1. I was thinking for the Shapeshifters episode that they had somehow made it to above ground, but if they haven't, that makes more sense then. Okay.
Yeah, if they did, they didn't show it, or I didn't notice it. So
yeah, I don't want to make any assumptions until I have some more like definite answer that they actually did go above ground or not. So if they do, I'll have the notes on it and we'll go there. I do find it interesting that we have this samurai who left the party and he keeps saying that he hates Laios. Like, we're going to talk about it a little bit more in the next chapter, but like, we have this other party that says that they can't stand Laios and what they're doing. We have this samurai who says he hates Laios. And like, and we still don't know, like, his sister left the party. Like, that we only got like a short segment of that, but that was like when he killed the dragon. That was a flashback he had where he was thinking about how his sister left the party. And I'm just sitting here like, what would make her leave her brother who's been there through thick and thin at the
yeah I mean, I guess we'll just have to see where they take this. And you know, knowing how anime can be sometimes, it'll probably be the weirdest possible solution to everything, but I mean, it raises some interesting points, but it kind of gives us a whole new party to try and latch onto, and they're okay. They, you know, I love the kobold. I love that the kobold is just this dude with a husky head who sniffs things out, and that's his entire job. I love him.
It's such an interesting take on a kobold. Like,
like,
I've seen them where like they're primarily all reptilian, right? Or
in like D&D themed things, I don't know where the dog thing would come from, but in earlier iterations of D&D, they're described as having kind of a barking, yipping vocalization, but they are smallish lizard men. But I mean, the kobold comes from German folklore and is basically just a catch-all term for like ghost, goblin, ghouly, supernatural thing.
Okay.
So I don't think there is one true form for a kobold to be. I think I like their reptilian version. They're kind of like...
There's a reason they were the mascot of... but real quick... There is this comment that came up. Where is he getting that Fallon never left the party? If you go back to episode 12, Laios is having flashbacks and his sister like is leaving him and he's having these thoughts of like, why did she leave us? Like, I think that, and again, like maybe we're going to find out more. Maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I don't see him as like, oh, why did she leave us by getting eaten by a dragon? Because, you know, how selfish of her over there. But so, I mean, it's even in the trailer, like that was one of the pinnacle points of the trailer is when Fallon is like, I've got to do my own thing. And she turns around and it's the whole like blocky, but like cutty of her running away. And he's just like, whoa. So that's, again, maybe I haven't read the manga. I haven't made it past episode 18, so we'll see what actually happens on that front.
Yeah.
I just so I can speak some positivity on episode 14, I did like the sea serpent. I thought it was a fun monster there, and definitely a lot better than a kraken.
Yeah, agree. That sea serpent was exactly what I have in mind for a pretty much party wiping encounter that I run every now and then in Dragonbane with, you know, a white sea serpent called the White Death. They nailed the look of it. I'm gonna have to literally like screenshot that and use it for my tokens next time I run Dragonbane.
Josh, I know you're in the chat. I want to highlight something that you commented on one of the videos, just saying that you wish that cooking was more a part of D&D. And I don't want to say that I disagree, But the only reason I think that it's not is it can be fun, but I feel like if you are role-playing cooking, it's fun for one, maybe two people for the duration of you doing that, which again, like, I don't want to ever take that away from somebody. But at the same time, like, one of the issues that, and again, like, we'll talk about it more when we eventually do talk about Legend of Vox Machina. But one of the things that I really fell off the wagon for Critical Role for me is that they just, again, I almost feel bad for saying this because I encourage my players, but they role played way more than they needed to or necessarily should.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, absolutely.
there's one point where they were like role playing so hard that like Caleb, Liam's wizard, was like, "Oh, I've got to go to the bathroom," and even Matt Mercer was like, "Okay, you don't need to do that." Like, to me, I'm sort of that same thing. Like, yes, it's awesome when the players role play, and I never want to dissuade anybody from doing that. But at the same time, like, I think we can both appreciate this. We both have put very much a lot of effort into creating these worlds and creating these adventures and creating these like trials. For them to get stuck up on like making a chicken pot pie over here might be like,
yeah,
come on, let's get to, but there's witches to be fighting.
Exactly. So, like, one of the fun things that I think about sometimes is, where do you poop in a dungeon? If you are delving in a dungeon, where do you poop? If a lot of people are delving this dungeon, does everybody poop in the same place?
But you better watch out for those mimic toilets.
Exactly. And, you know, these are elements that are fun to incorporate from time to time and to think about a little bit. But if you take it the simulationist route, and now, you know, we need to talk about every day, where do you find water? Every day, you know, how worn are your boots getting? How many arrows do you have? I think that if that is what the group wants to get into, and is interested in that sort of like resource management thing and survival, then that should be the point of the campaign. And I think there are absolutely times for that. But the kind of campaign we're seeing in this, I don't know, Delicious in Dungeon is a little weird in that they absolutely are highlighting food as an issue in dungeon delving.
I think the comment, like, I've been glancing over and just seeing, and I mean, it's anywhere from where do you poop to discussing the need. But like, if you remember I think it was in episode 2, Senshi was even saying like adventurers have a horrible diet. One thing I'll always remember from one of my sports medicine classes that I took in high school is that even if you are 10% dehydrated, you lose like 50% or more of like your athletic ability. Like, you're not like, it's a drastic difference between what you're able to actually be fully running at. So it does make sense that if you are getting a well-balanced diet and you're coming in full, like, maybe like, I don't know how you would necessarily incorporate this into a campaign, but it makes sense that they are actually running on better, like, they have the buffs, they have like, they're fully healed rather than only getting a partial rest, or like they don't have levels of exhaustion. Because I think we're even here at the point with what's his name, with Shiro, and you see the lines under his eyes, like the 9 o'clock shadow that he had. Yeah. Like, he does not look good.
No.
And he's supposed to be like this badass. Like, quick note, I know Samurai is a subclass in 5, but I miss it being like its own class, like, because it's just such a fun class. But that's a whole nother conversation. But he's like the badass. Like, he's the one that is like supposed to, like, it's said several times that he would always beat Laios. And Laios is like, I'm able to beat you because I'm on a well-rounded diet and you're eating like shit.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I loved that fact. And you know, he really did play it up. And I'm kind of hoping, again, that was a seed for the future, and that we're gonna find out what are maybe some of the consequences to that. But yeah, absolutely. The idea that you can lose, like, have incremental losses because you are exhausted, because you're dehydrated, things like that. 5e, at least before they made a big improvement to the exhaustion mechanic in the 2024 rules. So that now it's not just, the very first level of exhaustion is debilitating, unacceptable.
Yeah.
And if you throw an enemy at your party that will cause them to take 2 or more levels of exhaustion using the 2014 rules, you are now the mean DM.
I crossed that bridge a long time ago, though, Colby.
Take a player to 0 hit points, no problem. Point of exhaustion, this guy's hard.
They grab the pitchforks.
But yeah, having minor, like a -1 penalty to stuff is, like, I think a little bit better, just in terms of it not feeling debilitating. But the fact that it has been debilitating for so long, and the fact that 6 points will still kill you now, still keeps it feeling very unacceptable. And, it does kind of discourage that kind of play where you are tracking those things and making exhaustion an extra villain in the campaign.
Well, again, not to get too much up on a tangent here, but like just using from personal experience that I experienced today. I only got about 2 hours of sleep last night, and I went into work and I started working on an email, and one of my coworkers asked me to do something, and I was seriously just staring at the screen. I'm like, I have no idea what she's asking me to do. Like, read the words. I know what those words mean. I do not know what she's asking me. And like 10 minutes later, I was like, oh, duh, like, wake up. Like, and I was able to do it. So like, I get where, like, I get these levels of exhaustion like actually having a major effect. And I'm not saying I'm like, yes, I want hardcore version, I want that 2014. But at the same time, like, I also do, like, I get it.
Yep. Yeah, it certainly makes sense. It's just, it makes you feel very mean when you
Yeah.
It's a big consequence.
Well, you can even see it on Matt's face. Like I think it's when they go to the city of Brass and it's just so hot that they start taking levels of exhaustion, but it's just Pike who's taking levels of exhaustion.
Yep. Yeah, well, and that's another factor to this, that again, the design doesn't do a great job of facilitating this kind of play, in that you're going to have one character who's more likely to take those levels. If it's all based on con saves or whatever, then you're probably going to have one person who ends up with most of the exhaustion, and that unfortunately you end up with most of the party fine, and then one person just completely debilitated.
Yeah,
which isn't as fun. You really want to kind of tax the whole party as a unit in some of those situations.
And I'm sure their thought process when they were making it is like, okay, if one person is suffering from exhaustion, the party will do the noble thing and be like, all right, we're gonna either stop and rest. But we both know players can be very selfish. They're like, buckle up, Buttercup, like, we got a dragon to kill.
I don't care if your speed is halved.
I fail to see how that's my problem.
You can dash.
I don't remember you telling me that it was a bad idea to put all my opponent's points into con. So who's the loser now? No, it is interesting because, like, I feel like Constitution is like it's one of the most important, but at the same time, like, least used. It has its purpose, but
it does very little in most of gameplay. But if you dump it, you're gonna have a nearly unplayable character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, you can, every single one, I feel like you can get away with, and like, you can have a very uncharismatic character.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a very unintelligent character. You can have a very not wise character. You can even have a very, like, slow, not dexterous. You can have, but if you do not, like, you can't have con be your dump stat, because it literally, like, you become sickly. Like, that's essentially what it is.
Exactly. And like, there are famous characters that are run that way. The wizard with, like, some kind of congenital disease who is ultra smart. I think that's a fun character to play. But then you actually have to fight a monster and you get a bad roll, and suddenly that really intriguing character is just dead.
Well, isn't that like the whole idea with the wizard in Dragonlance, right? He's super sickly and just always
Yeah,
like
exactly.
he's the most powerful wizard out there, but like a
Yeah.
sneeze can
Well,
take him out.
and that was a character that would often come up if you were playing in the old style where you roll your stats in order. You know, 3d6 for each stat, you roll them in order, you play with the character that you get, it survives for as long as it survives, and you roll up a new one. And, you know, you did get anomalies like that one wizard with a 4 for their intelligence or for their constitution score, and then they just get lucky all the time and somehow manage to live beyond the point where that dump stat is a huge problem. But like that again is a different style of play, and the current rules don't really support that style of play anymore. The current rules don't support like kill a bunch of characters and make them really quickly. As good as D&D Beyond is for like a rules reference and building characters, if once you know it anyway, it's not quick to build a new character, not as quick as it could be. There's systems where you know they've got an online character generator that'll give you 4 level 0 characters at a time, and it's just a very, very different style of play. And I don't know, I think that Delicious in Dungeon is kind of looking at that style of play, and it is looking at this party as a group who have made it so far that they're beyond that like noob level.
Yes.
And there have been hints that they're like that, but the show doesn't really go out of its way to say where they are in the hierarchy of adventurers in this world until much later.
Well, it's funny, like, I just keep going back and like I feel like there's a lot of these very subtle signs that the party that we're following is actually evil. Like, because I was just thinking, like, that first party that they were with, we don't see any of them. Like, I don't think we've ever seen them in a like that, like this party that this group of 4 that we've seen is like the only time that we've seen them within a period of time. And it seems like Chilchuck is there because of like self-preservation. Senshi is sort of just the socially awkward, like, this is the world. Like, he's like Tom Bombadil and a dwarf,
Exactly.
like, combined.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
I think I'm sold. I think I'm on the train that they're actually evil. Well, and Marcel,
I think they're evil, or they're stooges of the true evil.
well, Marcel's literally doing blood magic.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Laios is getting a hard on for cannibalism. Chilchuck brags about how little he actually has to do other than just find the traps. Senshi has been living underground for how long, completely alone, and the very first time somebody was like, what if we could eat monsters? He's like, my time has come.
Like,
this is not a setup for a normal group of people or a well-adjusted group of people.
if we were to find out, like, obviously I don't think that this would be the case, but it would make so much sense to me that if Senshi was a Duragar. Like,
yes,
honestly, like, if we were told that he was a Duragar, I would be like, this makes so much sense. Like, you could even just be like a socially awkward, like, maybe like not an evil Duragar, but like a true neutral Duragar. Like, he's making some very questionable decisions, but it's coming from a place of just lack of understanding or just habit. And I don't know,
yep.
like, I'm hoping to see like these level 20 villains that they end up actually being.
Yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything else that we want to cover in these first 2 episodes?
Well, Nana Vagar talked about a Goldberry orc, and I just need to point out that I think episode 13 has a Goldberry orc.
Goldberry orc?
Like Lady Goldberry, as in Tom Bombadil's Lady Love.
Yeah. The whole CPR scene over there.
That was actually hilarious. Like, no, I'm just tired. And then every other scene is just showing Marcel unconscious with green goo down the side of her face. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like orc healing to me. That's perfect.
Orcs are something like, I think it's official that Warhammer 40K orcs are my favorite orcs because, like, the whole, and again, like,
Agree.
this is a whole tangent. I know I'm on this tangent. The whole idea with 40K, Warhammer 40K orcs is they're so stupid that they have like this psychic ability that if they believe something, it happens. If they paint like their car's red, the car drives faster. If
Yes.
there's windows in their spaceship because they believe they can breathe in space. Like, they're just so, like, I feel like that's just so amazing that they're so stupid that
Yep.
they're actually like god tier level over here.
Yep.
And I think it was Ryan who was telling me that there's like this a famous battle where the orcs were fighting like space marines and the space marines ran out of bullets, but they just pretended to shoot them and they were convincing the orcs that they were still killing the orcs even though they did have, like that's amazing. I do not know how this mechanic works in the game, but that's amazing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 40K orcs I still think are the best. I don't remember, for some reason it came to mind that the orcs from Legends and Lattes might have something else going on for them. I don't know if you've read that. It's in this kind of genre of cozy fantasy. It's literally just about like an orc barbarian lady who decides to quit and just open a coffee shop.
Okay.
And it's so good. It's such a good book.
I have seen that.
Yeah, it's completely different. You know, it's completely different in every possible way from this, but I feel like they did talk a little bit about how their orcs are, and I think I remember liking it. I don't remember why. I don't know why I bring that up. Super interesting tangent for your listeners.
No, I was just gonna say, because I know a lot of people in the chat are curious. I have finished Wind and Truth, and
Nice.
I feel like I need to do a whole episode on that, but I'm not going to say anything also because I do not want to spoil anything for you, Colby, because I don't think you've finished it quite
I'm not
yet.
there yet. I'm like 30% of the way through that book.
Well, just keep chugging along. I started reading Red Rising. Have you read Red Rising yet?
I have. I've read the first trilogy. Yeah.
I've really been
Very
enjoying. Good. Yeah, I'm about, I think, 17 chapters in and really enjoying it. Really fascinating so far. So
yeah.
And I think it's the perfect amount of like being dark, but also like easy to understand and not like death and pillage everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great example of, you know, that story is going to take you some places. When you get to the middle of book, near the end of Golden Sun, just be ready.
Buckle up.
Like you think that, I mean, it follows the you know, middle of the trilogy has to be the dark one, right? This book sells that. It goes so hard at that. It's it's what comes up in the dictionary definition.
Well, I know that it's popular just from book talk. Like book talk always talks about how amazing this book is, and I'm really excited. I'm fascinated by it because I really am not a big sci-fi fan, but I'm a sucker for sci-fi that where they're so technologically advanced that it just circles back into fantasy.
Exactly. Yeah, it's taking the Star Wars approach in which it might be spaceships and lasers, but they're not explained in any way. It's not hard sci-fi. We're not focused on those things. It's science fantasy in a bigger way. It doesn't even, I don't think that book is even sure when it's set.
I mean,
how many centuries in the future?
It's, although it is crazy, like no, we can't. I feel, I can feel it. It's sucking me in. I have to resist. I have to resist. Alrighty, we're gonna go ahead and do Chapter 2, Trapped and Starving, Episode 15. The dungeon layout shifts dramatically. Senshi hunts dryads for food, but their pollen blinds the party. Marcille breaks her staff, leaving her powerless. Laios learns healing magic, but suffers mana sickness. Cockatrice petrifies Marcille. Curing her wastes 4 days, deepening their desperation. Episode 16. Chilchuck deciphers the dungeon pattern, leading them back to the dragon site. They encounter cleaners, tiny repair creatures. Senshi cooks a meal using cockatrice in the crushed cleaners. edible stone dish. Shiro and Cabro confront Laios about Fallon's black magic resurrection. Shiro attacks Laios, but later relents. It's definitely this episode 17 that it like you can tell that they're building up to a big episode. And like it was fun. It was all right. But like the whole hay fever and dryads, like that was the comedic relief, but at the same time, like it's such a weird situation that they're in. I feel like they're trying to take this darker tone with the show, and then they just are like, "Oh, hay fever." It's sort of hard because you're just sitting there like, the sister is being tortured and manipulated biologically over here, and haha, boogers. And it's just like, it can be done, but I also feel like it's just they're trying to do too much of like a whiplash of humor.
Yeah, the tone matching doesn't work very well. It's I mean, you go back to basics of filmmaking and what a montage is for, and why, what's it called? Kuleshov effect. You put two clips right next to each other, the audience assumes that they are related. And I feel like they were trying to say something, with that juxtaposition, for an English 101 word. And I'm not sure what it was. I'm not sure it was clear. Maybe it's something that didn't translate well from, and this is one of the things that I think is an obstacle for me in most anime, is that stuff doesn't always translate well. And I don't think that's the fault of the writers or anything like that. I don't think anyone should have to write for every culture. But I don't know. Sometimes I kind of want footnotes, like when you're reading a Shakespearean play or something, to explain to me some of the idioms that they're referring to here.
Like, it's so famous at this point, and I just love it so much because, I mean, to this day, I think it's still it's an amazing anime, and it's, I think, the most expensive anime to date. But Death Note has the famous line where he's like, and I take a potato chip and I eat it while he's like killing people with the Death Note. And it's like super emphasized on him, like just eating. I'm like, I'm sure that was completely different in Japanese. But it's one of those things that it's just like incredible. It makes for a great meme.
Yeah, it does. But then other times it makes for combinations that don't work once you've translated it. And I feel like that might be what happened here. I think I will say that I like their depiction of dryads. Now, I saw the episode title, Dryads, first, and I was like, if they're going straight D&D dryads, that's just that's an ancient plant woman. Are you just going to kill and eat an ancient plant woman? I'm not sure this is going to be okay. And then they first show the first appearance of the dryads on screen is straight up pornographic. And I'm like, oh God, this is just getting worse. And I like the idea that they're actually just flowers of a kind of carnivorous plant. I think that's a great way for them to have taken it. I think it's original. Thank God they went that way. But I definitely felt nervous.
There was one person in the boardroom like, come on, guys. You want to.
Exactly.
Want to. And they're like, all right, this is Laios reincarnate. Like, this is real life podcast right now.
Yep.
But I agree. Like, that's one thing that I like, even with these episodes that are not necessarily my favorite, I really love the direction that they're taking, like, these things that, and like, again, we already talked about it, so we don't need to necessarily dive into it, but they're making these sort of monsters and they're making it work in this world. I'm excited to talk about the shifters because I have such mixed feelings about it, but I am excited for us to talk about it because I think we can have some really good conversation D&D wise there. Again, like, these two episodes were clearly just, they were all
more difficult.
Yeah, they're just alley-ooping us, getting ready for.
Yeah.
But Colby, do you want us just to jump into chapter 3 and maybe we'll finish the podcast before 2 hours?
What?
I know. This is. Was there anything else you want to talk about in these 2 chapters?
I'm going to scrub
in this
through
one
real
chapter.
quick. I liked petrification. I think that how they handled that was excellent. I think I really enjoyed Laios saying, okay, quick, like, get in the fetal position, put your hands over your face. And she's like, why? How is this going to help me not get petrified? He's like, no, it's just going to make you a lot easier to deal with once you are. And she's like, you son of a bitch! And like gets out of position. And then they're talking about her eyelashes broke. And in later scenes, her left eye, no lashes, which absolutely makes sense. If you're going to petrify someone, what's going to happen? If they're in some weird position with their arms stretched out, stone is only so strong. It's brittle.
Mhm.
You're more likely to break off an arm. So he's absolutely right. If you think you're going to get petrified, you should go fetal position, cover up anything that might break, and be a relatively durable rock egg.
And
I love that.
I also do love that they are over there just like, okay, you don't have to rub yourself in the blood of basilisk. You don't have to like have these spells prepared, because I feel like there's been several times that I've played a game where like, oh, we don't have the spell and we don't have the proper like antidote. And it just
Exactly.
nothing halts a campaign faster than that.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally just them like, okay, we have to wait for 4 days. And like, yes, it halts the campaign, but in D&D, you can like yada, yada, yada it for 4 days. Like you don't have to be
Exactly.
like, no, we have to go hunt down the rest of them. And then we bathe in the blood of the basilisk. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's another great example of something that's a binary challenge, the way it's designed in 5e. You know, either you've got the spell to solve this problem or you don't.
yes.
If you do have the spell, then it's not a problem. You might as well have not made a challenge. So again, I like the idea that they just like play around with some things, and then one of those things works. If this was indeed made from a D&D campaign, which again I could be convinced of, that moment where they're just like slapping vegetables on her face to see if anything will work, that was the DM being like, all right, that one works, whatever.
I guess. I don't know. That
Slap some cucumbers on there. That'll do it.
never underestimate the healing power of cucumbers. So I want to like almost call back to one of our old campaigns. I feel like the relationship between Senshi and Chilchuck is almost what it was between Gru and Morty back in like,
Absolutely.
not quite the same, but there's a lot of like overlapping similarities where like it's both just like a paternal dwarf that like has this like need to be like, I see this life form that needs direction. Is it giving the best of direction? Probably not.
Yeah, I do really enjoy it whenever Senshi really gets a moment where something actually bothers him and he's doing something other than just cooking food.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody demonstrates poor nutrition in front of him and he goes dark Senshi, that's when he's at his best. And I don't know, I think this is a way in which I hope that this is not based off a real campaign, because if it is, then you have players just not doing anything for entire episodes, which isn't fun. And it's stuff that you can absolutely do. You can just sideline a character for a bit in a show, in a story you're telling, but you really can't if you're running this as a session for a bunch of people to enjoy.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big stumbling block for new DMs. They see this style of storytelling and they're like, okay, well, I know this character could solve this problem, so how do I take them out of it so that they can't solve the problem? But then you've created a new problem of this player literally just does nothing for the next 2 hours. And it's a very different experience to try and keep 6 people engaged when one of them has a spell that can solve this problem like that, and the rest of them can't do anything.
Yeah. And again, like, I know we talked about this, I know 2 weeks ago, if not last week, but I think that that's why like levels 6 through 12 might be the best levels, because you're able to go and do engaging enough issues where you're fighting either very powerful beings that are entertaining, but at the same time, and you as a DM can actually like again, I know that you don't necessarily have the enjoyment of being like PvP over here, but the sick, twisted nature of me, I love that PvP. I'm like, come at me, bro. Come at me. I've got this wizard who's going to be sending all these orcs over at you. Like, but again, I tell my players this too. Like, I don't like, yes, I do joke about taking a sick, twisted pleasure out of it, but it's because I also enjoy just seeing them overcome it. And like, if I see them getting frustrated, I obviously, when I say frustrated, I'm not saying that they're not enjoying themselves, but it's like I want to see them sweat a little. I want them to be like, okay, like there is actual stake to this game. Like if they aren't feeling that, they're not invested in the game. So like to me, that's sort of what and like I'm also excited that they are still caring of their character this much that they're so scared that something will actually happen to them.
Yeah.
Because I know we both have had characters who are like, they could die. I want.
Yeah.
Why did I pick monk? Like, let's.
Yeah. Well, and Kayla still won't forgive me for Quinnen.
We both had monks that we just tossed to the side.
Yep.
Oh. Apparently we don't anti-monks over here.
Yep. I mean, 2014 monk wasn't that fun of a class to play anyway, so there we go.
Yeah. We got that. All right. Anything else in episode 15 or 16 that we want to cover before moving on?
I'm good.
All righty. Chapter 3, Fallon's Transformation and the Chase. Episode 17. Fallon, now a chimera, attacks, killing Kabru, who's later resurrected. Laios hesitates to fight her, shocking the party. Shuro blames Marcel and threatens to report her to the High Elves. His fist fight with Laios dissolves into a childish squabble. After reconciling, Shuro departs, giving Laios a communication tool. Kabru starts believing in Laios' unconventional tactics. Episode 18. The party follows Fallon to a frozen sixth floor where dwarf ruins suggest ancient secrets. A shapeshifter mimics the party. Laios exposes it by acting like a hound, using his monster expertise creatively. Marcel is kidnapped by Aspoe from Shuro's party, revealing a lingering enemy in the dungeon. Both of these episodes pretty good, but I think they're both pretty good for very different reasons.
Yeah.
This episode of Fallon in her chimera state, easily the darkest episode to date.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where we've kind of wondered about what are the stakes going to be? What are the actual consequences going to be? How turned is Fallon? And here we see all the way. She's not saved like we thought at all.
She's more machine now than man.
Exactly. Or just replace, machine with red scales, feathers, and bone structure that makes zero fucking sense.
So here's my question for you. And again, like, I know there's probably people in the chat that have read the manga or have seen further than we do. Do you think when she was like, had the tear go down and she's like, save me, brother, was that actually Fallon? Or was that the monster that just knows that he's like using Fallon's memories to remember how much he cares? Like, what do you believe? I know that there's not really a good answer, but like, what would you, like, if you had to put money on it, what would you say?
I would say that, like, again, not knowing anything and knowing that this could go anywhere, I would say that I think one of the most interesting outcomes for me, and I'm going to bet on it for that reason, and not because I think it's likely, is that she was bait all along. And that maybe we did the dragon dirty when we rated it last time, because we called it animalistic, and we're starting to see some signs that maybe it's not. And maybe that was an act. I don't know. I think that would be an interesting way to take it. Like, this dragon went down easy. This is something that I've used many times in the past when a combat doesn't when the players are just rolling hot and none of your monsters can hit, and they're just like, that was the big boss, that was so easy. Then you just throw in, okay, the last monster says, see you next time. And then the players are like, okay, And I think that's an interesting way to play it. Okay, you've grown a little bit, you've figured things out, you've managed to slay this dragon. Turns out it's more complicated than that. Turns out that's what they wanted. You've been manipulated. I think that's a cool way they could take it. Who knows if they would.
I really hope that they go that direction. I really hope that this dragon is manipulative and like Fallon is either like completely locked away or just gone
Yeah.
in general. Like I really don't want it to be like the stereotypical anime where it's like, I can still see that little girl in her soul right there. She's just begging to be like, no, like she literally smiled while crushing somebody's head into the cement, like with the dragon claw. And then 2 seconds later, it's like, help me, brother, help me. I'm like, was anybody going to help that lady right there? No one was helping her get when she got curb stomped. I know I said this earlier. I love just unapologetic evil characters. Like yes, a tragic character is just as fun and can be just as fun. But like, and again, like I know you're not a big anime watcher, but one of the most iconic villains in anime to me is All for One, who's like the big bad villain of My Hero Academia, who, spoiler alert, he steals other superheroes' powers and absorbs it for himself. And it's just made him like, I don't care. Like, I am evil. Stop me. Like, I steal your power. What are you going to do about it? Like, and like, I love that mentality because he's literally just gotten to this point where he just takes everybody's powers that he wants and he's got this god complex because of it. And I really would love to see a dragon with this god complex over here. Like, I'm the alpha creature here. Like, I can defeat anything. I would hate it to be like, oh, she's just a tragic girl trapped in the head over here. Like, no, like, I don't know. Like, that's like, there's a time and place. Maybe the season finale, but like I hope that it's not an arc that they're like I want the show to end with them either having to like kill Fallon or like Laios is gonna have to sacrifice himself to save his sister. Like I don't want there to be like no cost to bringing her back.
Exactly.
Because that's what they're gonna that's what's gonna be like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the conventional place to take it, is like I can get through to her and you know, that spark of humanity, and then they'll bring everything together and do a big heroic resurrection, and Marcel will have learned how to, you know, resist the evil of the ancient magic and whatnot. I feel like that's likely where it's going, but I would find that a little disappointing.
I actually just had a thought that might be very likely as well. What's the chances that Laios takes his sister's place and becomes the monster? And it almost ties back to like, okay, he's been eating monsters this entire time. So he has like all these different DNAs of monster, and he just becomes like the astral dreadnought of monsters in this because he just like, I would low-key love that. Like, because like I think that was actually a conversation in this, like whoever defeats the Mad Mage becomes the Mad Mage. So what if Laios becomes like this god emperor of the, like, did we just stumble across something?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely, that makes absolute sense. You know, or some version of, you've eaten so many monsters, you can't leave now. You're all stuck here. You made this your life. Now you have to, that's what would make the most like emotional sense for me as an ending for this arc, is like, hey, you tried to make your living off of like violence and putting yourself in the way of all these monsters that shouldn't have a happy ending, really, especially when you start seeing shit like you do in this episode with, you know, the harpies are super dark, they're trying to take Fallon down. That's super dark and super violent. And I don't think any of them should walk away from this unscathed.
No.
At all.
Like, each one of them has their own like the most innocent one out of them all is Senshi, but that's just like ignorance is bliss sort of situation. And now that you're mentioning this, we have not seen Senshi go to the surface once. Like, we discovered him in the dungeon and he has not left the dungeon at all here. So like,
exactly.
Like, and I would find it just so sad for Chilchuck, like, just because like he's literally there because he has nowhere else to go.
Uh-huh.
He's like, I can't go off on my own. I need
Yeah.
my meat shields over here. And like, if he has to be stuck in the dungeon, like, I know that would be his personal hell. Like, he would, like, Laios is going to get by. He'll love it.
Yeah.
Like,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Senshi, I don't think Senshi even wants to see the sun ever again.
Exactly. And Marcel could, she wants the secrets of magic. They're all down there.
Yeah. If somebody was like telling her, like, hey, yeah, like you can discover the secrets of magic, like I'm sure she's totally fine to spend the next 500 years trying to find all of that. But
Yeah, but well, and oddly, I think that, as is really common in a lot of D&D campaigns, you do have characters who kind of have a problem of why the hell are they involved?
yes.
And I keep thinking that about Chilchuk, and the show keeps trying to answer that question, like, okay, he was here for money at first.
Yeah.
Okay, that works, kind of. And then later, okay, he's here because he cares about his party members. He doesn't want to see them die. He just wants them to survive. And even that is a big revelation for him to have, gotten attached to these people to an extent where he'll try and save their lives, even if there's nothing in it for him. But still, I don't feel like either Chilchuk doesn't have enough motivation to be involved in this from the start, or we just don't know it yet.
I love how we've been staying so on vein for the like very uncharacteristic of us over here. So I think it's time for a tangent over here. I think that that aspect is actually one of the most important things that I've picked up from your games that I try to tie back, because I don't know if there was a particular player that was struggling with this at the time. I don't know. Like, I genuinely don't know what was going on, but eventually you did start bringing up, you're like, hey, why are you adventuring? Like, why are you guys together? Like, why is this the case? And it was one of those things where, like, with my character, I don't even know if it was directed at my character or not, or like, again, like, I don't know, but I just really sat down and was like, huh, why is Brant? Because I think it was that camp. It may have been a different one, but I was like, why is this character adventuring with these people? And I think with Brant, it was a lot easier than maybe some other characters at the time. He was like, well, he has like a revenge plot he's trying to go with. He's got a couple of like people that are going to help him get along the way. Plus, he also has like a fatherly bond with each one of them. But so, like, yeah, like, and I think it's very healthy in the game to be like, okay, reassess. Why are you here with this group of people? In some cases, like like, again, like, I'm not saying this to call any of my players out, but Austin's character is like a Nepo baby and it's hilarious. I love everything about it. But like everyone in the party like rips on him all the time. And I'm just sitting here and I'm oftentimes thinking, like, what would happen if like a group of people just had this guy who was like a Rockefeller and they were just like constantly insulting him? Would he stay? Like, I don't know if he would stay that long, especially where he's so used to people just kissing his ass for him. Even though if he was like, I do just want to make, I don't want to be a part of the family business. I want to make music and to piss my father off over here. Like,
Yeah.
but still, like, what? And again, Austin, I'm not asking you like you to be questioning these sort of things, but like, I always do feel bad because like I'm sitting there sometimes thinking like, literally everyone is
Mm-hmm.
just bashing on him this entire time. Now, Austin is doing an awesome job, but he does role play this character as an asshole sometimes. But that's sort of the thought process I have. I'm like, okay, do
Yeah.
I need to sit down and talk to like Austin in the form of Warzu? Like, what's going on here? Like, what is Warzu thinking? Like, why is he just putting up with all this like verbal abuse from everybody? Or I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, to an extent, you almost have to think, you need to stop and think about what characters go through in an adventuring day. In these fights, you're taking hits, you're going to extreme climates, you're on your feet 24/7, eating hardtack and dried meat, you're pooping in the woods, you're sleeping at best in like a bedroll or a tent, which, like, I've done that long term, and it's not as easy as you think. And some of these physical things, you know, if you're not thinking of your character as a person, if you're thinking of them as a character sheet, you know, you can just keep playing the game however. But if, you know, my advice to players is if you've got a character that you're playing and you're like, I don't know why I'm not feeling this person. More often than not, the answer is because you don't know who they are. You need to think of them as the equivalent of somebody who, in our day and age, went from an office job as a banker and just hopped on a plane and got off a plane in Ukraine and jumped straight into the trenches. What does it take to put a person in that situation? And what kind of person chooses to do that? And what kind of history do they have? I mean,
I think that you're gonna like part of me wants to save it when we cover Legend of Vox Machina, but the other part of me is like, this is just too good of an opportunity to cover. We just have to cover it right now. I think two excellent examples of this is first when Vax was right before the Chroma Conclave show up. Vax talks to his sister Vex about like, why are we with this group? We're going and stealing things that we don't need to steal, but we're stealing from people. We have party members that legitimately want to kill us because like,
yeah.
Again, I was on Team Grog. Vax was being I was like, Vax, you brought that on yourself. Like, okay. Like, but like, it's that same mentality of like, okay, what are we doing? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Why are we over here? And I love and appreciate that they actually did that. And it's the second thing that hurts me the most that they've removed from the show, that because I think that was such a moving point in the actual storyline when that happened. And when they just didn't include it, I'm like, okay, like that, why that, like, I don't think they have to know how influential that is and how these players need to be able to see this. And especially where this show, Legend of Vox Machina, might be the first time people are introduced to D&D. So if they're seeing these sort of lessons, like, they're teaching like, okay, it's okay and acceptable. But again, like, I think you'll know where I'm taking with this, but the pinnacle of like understanding your character and knowing what you need to do and like the direction is Scanlan with Sam. Like, when the Bard's Lament is easily, and again, I will fight anyone on this. The Bard's Lament is the greatest moment in Critical Role history. Like, it was like, I don't think Matt talked for 45 minutes. Like,
yeah.
And as much as I love Matt Mercer, you know that it's a great situation when he doesn't have to talk.
Yes.
And like, everything Scanlan went through and it was experiencing what Sam was like bringing forward made 110 perfect sense percentage wise. And like, his responses that he was giving were all just genuine answers. And I genuinely like, I try not to get actually angry because it's stupid to get angry over a show and a thing, and it's their own creative right. But I don't think, like, I wish they understood how important that was of a scene, and to take it out of their show. Like, again, I understand that it would conflict with the whole like finale thing and everything, but I think it's borderline like such, I mean, it's not even border, it's such a disservice for them to actually remove that from their story because it is so important to D&D. Like, you need to see this, how the sausage is made. You need to see that it's okay to actually do that. And on the flip side, you need to see that it's not like Sam having those feelings towards, he's following what his character, because like, they hugged each other, they kissed each other, and then later in that episode he comes with one of the most ridiculous characters of all time, and it was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the kind of thing that they as a group went into because they were all actors and because they were all, you know, used to getting into a character to that extent, and they all knew how it feels to create a fiction and then, you know, for the show to end and for them to all be okay with that. So that's not an easy thing, but I agree. I really missed it from the show. I think that the moment we got in its place, like, do you spice, was a fun little call out, but I was genuinely like watching this next to my wife and I was like, oh shit, here it comes. This is where it's going to happen, if anywhere. and it just didn't. And I was like, that is one of my two most favorite consequential moments in that entire campaign. And the first one's gone. I feel like the second one, I hope, makes it in as well, which is right at the very tail end in their Vecna fight.
Yeah.
Where Scanlan uses the 9th level counterspell.
Here's the thing. If they don't include that, we riot. Like, that's
Yeah. If they don't include that, then they have missed the point. That was such a powerful decision for him to make.
Yeah.
And the fact that so few people noticed it the first time around, but then they realize, oh, that was enormously consequential. And that's the kind of moment that you can only get 119 episodes into an 8-year-long campaign.
Yeah. And
that was fantastic.
And again, like, there's so many conversations, and don't worry, guys. Colby will be back after we finish, and we'll talk about Legend of Vox Machina. I'd just like to get a little closer to when the show is actually coming out before we do that. And those episodes will be 5 hours long each. Like,
yeah.
You think we're going on tangents now? Colby is the reason that I got into Critical Role, so I know that everything I bring up with Critical Role, I'll always remember, like, first experiencing Critical Role, sitting in the not the dugout, but like the announcer's booth at Dixie State, now Utah Tech University, for their baseball team, and just listening. And like, I'm working on my degree in sports management while listening to arguably one of the most nerdy shows you can listen to.
Yep.
So buckle up when those episodes be coming.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about shapeshifters in D&D real quick. I love what they did here, but I also recognize that it's nearly impossible to actually have a good shapeshifter experience in D&D because, again, unless you have the strictest of strict parties, it's so easy to metagame in this situation. And I don't know, like, I think it's just impossible. Like, unless you have a shapeshifter that's like involved with outside of the part, like only NPCs can have shapeshifters, because even I have a pretty honest crew of people, and I just still even know, like, if I were to introduce a shapeshifter into their group that was posing as one of them, they would be immediately like, oh, why is he speaking weird? Can I roll a perception check? I'm like, why are you rolling a perception check? Why you do? And again, like, I can't fault because it's just not set up in a good role-playing aspect for it to happen.
Yeah, I think the setup they gave us here is something that I honestly am probably going to try at some point. Like there are suddenly 3 additional near perfect copies of this character. And I like it as a storytelling tool as well, because suddenly they have to look at each other, and, you know, the detail that's going to be off is probably not, this one has a big ugly nose. And so it's very obviously, like, they gave Laios the easy ones. Like, this one is way too big, and this one is stupid handsome. And, you know, I like that it's gonna be heavy on, you know, how you set up the situation and how you describe things. Because what they set up is intensely visual, which is, you know, visual gags are hard to pull off because you're literally just describing things with your voice. And maybe your internet cuts out for that moment and you sound like a transformer when you were trying to describe exactly the difference between these 2 copies. Yeah, so, like, hard to do. I will say, one of my very favorite arcs from any of my campaigns that I've ever run had to do with a shapeshifter taking over the place of somebody in a party. And the only reason that worked so well is because of the player that I had in that situation. And unfortunately, he doesn't play with me anymore. He had to drop his games and take a second job. Miss you, John. I don't know if you're ever going to hear about us again. But anyway, he's one of those guys. He's like older Gen X. He's one of those guys where you're like, is he about to tell a racist joke? No. Okay. Thank God. But he kind of gives you that vibe that it could come out anytime, and very when he role plays something, he's very dedicated to it and very good at it. And so this was our Rime with the Frost Maiden campaign. And what had happened is you start out the campaign, you deal out cards, that is, each character gets a secret. And the card I got for him was the doppelganger card. Your character is actually a doppelganger with all of the same abilities as your character. And what happened is we forgot that I had given him that card until like a number of sessions in. And then I was like, oh shit, your character's a doppelganger. How'd that happen? And we realized that the party had like gone into this castle full of a bunch of cultists, and they had gotten separated for a short time because his character was the rogue. He was doing roguey stuff. He was creeping around in the castle. And then they finished up. They made their deal with those cultists. They left. And we decided that at that point he had actually been replaced. And so all he did was he started just being ever so slightly more of an asshole. Like he was an asshole rogue to start with, and now he just started to get like it shifted from all in good fun to maybe kind of a problem. And he's a role player who is so good at walking that line, making you feel like he's about to tell a racist joke, but then never actually doing it, that he played it for that long until it finally came out. And when the rest of the party figured out what had happened, it was a turning point in the entire story. It's where things got serious.
Yeah.
And they then had this whole sequence where they had to go back and get the real Miko. And then real Miko ended up dying a few sessions later anyway. But anyway, that was one of those sessions where when they finally figured out that like he was leaving in the middle of the night, and he had been like abusing animals, and he had been doing like super dark shit, and somebody finally followed him and watched him just murder someone on the street. And they're like, oh no. And they ended up, their artificer ended up shooting him like in the head, like straight, like critical hit, maximum damage, one shot killed this character. And I mean, that still gives me goosebumps, that moment when they were like, how long has this guy been a doppelganger? So it can be done, but you need really special circumstances.
Exactly. And here's the thing, like and again, I'm bringing this up more just like explaining how it's so hard to be in these sort of situations.
Yeah.
Because I will always remember where, first of all, Shar, if you're listening to this, we miss you. I don't want this to come across as me bashing you. Like, this is immature Bryce as a player, me saying that, just getting this clarification out. But when she had her Dragonborn that ended up turning into a traitor, like, I never trusted Shar's characters after that. Like, I know it was not Shar. But like in my head, especially because I had just recently come back to playing, like I was like, oh, is Shar gonna like turn? And like maybe that's a whole thing of like my character just didn't trust anyone after that. But like I still was like, I am keeping my eye on you, Shar. I don't trust it. But that, and I know, again, like I'm not saying that that's what every party does, but I think it takes a level of like emotional maturity to be like, okay, separating the character from the person. And because I'm sure like initially everyone was like, John, how could you betray us that way? You didn't give us any hints and stuff. But like it sounds like he did just such an amazing job of like, no, he was giving you hints. He was laying that out. And I know that, and I recognize now that Shar was doing the same thing too. Like Shar was giving us hints that that character was going to betray us. All of that was going to be happening. And it just makes for a better story. But at the same time, when you have immature players like me, you hold that in for sessions and sessions and sessions rather than just being like, no, this is a game. Yeah. We just need to move on.
I mean, an important ingredient here that I didn't mention before is that this was the second campaign. This moment came like halfway through the second campaign with that group. And they all knew each other really well. They had run all the way through Call of the Netherdeep together, with him just playing a boastful barbarian and like a comedic character who literally picked up one guy and killed his buddies with like swinging this guy as a club. Like, and then he comes in with this rogue who's just kind of like doing rogue shit here and there. And everybody's like, what's John doing? He's usually role-playing bigger than this. Very special circumstances. It took a guy who had been playing D&D since 1974 with the little brown box, who loved role-playing, loved every aspect of the game deeply, and was very good at it. And with a group that all trusted that wherever he's going with this, John might sometimes make us think that he's about to go the wrong place with it, but we trust him not to. And yeah, you're absolutely right. That takes some maturity as a player, as a group. You need to know what's possible. And Critical Role can pull that off because they were all actors and they were all friends for a long time before. And for a long time, there's been this thing in online discourse, like the Matt Mercer effect. Everybody blames Critical Role for everything that's wrong in the hobby because, you get a few people showing up and being like, my very special bisexual tiefling has so much trauma and just not fitting in the campaign. And everybody's like, Critical Role is ruining the hobby. Any problems that the community has with how Critical Role runs, in my experience, usually come down to one of two things. One is like, if you don't want to play like them, then you don't have to play like them. And number two, if you do want to play like them, don't try until you're ready.
Well, the way I put it, and I think we can both necessarily appreciate this analogy with our upbringing. Like, I say blaming Matt Mercer for what's wrong with D&D is like blaming the Bible's depiction of Jesus Christ for religion overall. Like, that's how I view it. Like,
exactly.
The religion that is taken specifically with Jesus Christ has some very questionable things going on over there. But if you read what he actually said and you read like what he actually did, he's a great guy. Like, he's somebody you should emulate, trying to be like. That's not like,
yeah.
And so being like, yes, like all these things done in Christianity's name, horrific. But if you go off of like what he actually does, like, they're separating the art from the artist.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They're almost like pro moves. And if you got your start, like I did, like I learned so much of my GMing style from watching Critical Role, which is now a thing that you say to explain why you sucked so bad when you first started running games. But I was in that pipeline. I wanted to do that stuff, and that kind of did end up shaping my style toward more of a certain way, but it really is like learning to play football by watching pro football, and then trying to take those lessons directly into a pickup game with your friends, where it's touch or flag, and you're like being super aggressive and spiking the ball and like shooting up HGH before the match. These things are not the same. Critical Role is pro ball.
Yeah.
And honestly, the real problem is people thinking that they can just jump in and it's going to be like that. They should be inspired to try and get there.
Yeah, and like, again, the Matt Mercer, I feel like we could just do a whole episode on the Matt Mercer effect, because like,
we absolutely could.
Like, I still go back and watch some of his old GM tips because like there's a lot of, and again, like I know Matt Colville is like considered the prophet of giving out advice and over there, but I like, and again, I'm not saying this because I do enjoy like a lot what Matt Colville does, but like there's something about Matt Mercer's personality, about his particular storytelling ability that just is so like I firmly believe that Matt Mercer is going to go down as one of the greatest storytellers of all time. Like, I don't think there's anyone, like, I know people will say like, oh, Brandon Mulligan, like he's the better GM, or like, oh, like this, like the way Matt is able to just describe a world, like we sat through how many hundreds of hours where there's no animation. There's literally the closest to like action sequences is there's little figurines that you're watching them move around. It's not even claymation essentially. Like, and he is like, I have been on the edge of my seat just listening to, and again, he is an amazing voice actor that certainly helps quite a bit.
Yeah.
But like his ability to tell stories, and again, like as a player and as a GM, you shouldn't be expecting to try and go in and be Matt Mercer, or you're trying to be Liam O'Brien right off the bat. But I also think that there's enough people out there that are like, no, you shouldn't even try to be like that. Just be yourself, which again, I appreciate. But I also don't think that there's nothing wrong with like, I want to be like Michael Jordan and I'm going to try to play like Michael Jordan. Like, sure, when you start going and like getting in your friend's face like Michael Jordan would, that's a little different. But like at the same time, like trying to do the moves that he does playing some pickup game, eventually you're going to pick it up and you're going to be not at Michael Jordan's level, but you're going to be a lot better than you were originally if you keep practicing it and you keep.
Yes.
Because I think there is a balance. Like I know that there are people on YouTube that have seen like, you shouldn't try to be like Matt Mercer, but be like Matt Mercer. Try to be.
Yeah.
Like there are worse people to try to be like.
Yeah. Well, and this is, I mean, DMing in particular is such a complex thing. You wear so many hats as a DM. You are a world builder. You're an actor. You are a game designer. And I have never DM'd 2 games exactly the same way because you keep growing. And the don't be like Matt Mercer is the right piece of advice for some people in some parts of their journey. But also be like Matt Mercer is the right advice again for some people in some part of their journey. And it's one of those things where the problems really come about when you're trying to make these statements hold true for everybody at all times. What I've come to appreciate most about Matt Mercer is less his storytelling ability. His voice acting is fantastic, but I don't think it's necessary. I think that the way I want to be like Matt Mercer is how he puts a group together and the culture he creates around the table. That is a group who got a style of friendship that's very empathetic and very open and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that that's the part that's necessary, but what I'm saying is that group is so together and so on the same page. And as a DM, that's what you really want. You want a group of players who are all looking for the same thing, who are more or less on the same page. They're going to have, you're going to have one person who knows the rules better, and you're going to have one person who's a bit of a better actor, and one person who just jabbers a lot and kind of like fills in the quiet spots. And it's that alchemy, that like social engineering that I really look up to, because they've got, as a group, they've got their bases really covered for the style of game that they're creating. And that's the hard part, that's where most groups fail, is trying to create the culture and trying to, well, also scheduling. Scheduling is the real villain. That's the CR50.
There is no CR. It is the chain of
CR Infinity.
No, it's so like, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying there. I feel so fortunate to be with the party of people that I am with now, just because like and again, like I don't like, if anybody that has picked up like some of the key, like the playable characters that we've played it, I'm not necessarily directing that at you guys, but there's been times where you would like, something that you did that I actually really liked is you would invite people and you'd give them just a pre-made character and test them out. And there were some awesome people that we played with. And there were some people that you could tell it wasn't really their thing. And it just like, and there were some people that just like, they thought they wanted to play and they realized they didn't want to play. And I think that there's a lot of like trial and error that goes into it. Like you can be best friends with somebody, you can be super close, but at the same, like I consider Ryan, like I really like Ryan, but I wasn't that necessarily close to him when I was living in St. George. I didn't really communicate with him outside of D&D, but like each character I had was like best friends with his character, and we got along so well in game, even though like outside a game, like, yeah, we're cool, but not like how we are now, where we're like texting back and forth and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's interesting because like there's so many different layers of like how D&D works on that front.
Absolutely. It's a very, very deep, multi-leveled hobby. And I think that's why, I think there are very few things that are good advice at all stages. I think that one of maybe 3 that I can think of specifically for DMs. The only piece of advice for every DM at every stage is just start doing it. Just go ahead. Because like the things that you and I are talking about, your stories from campaigns that I ran for you and for other people, like I was so new at that time. And some of those stories, I was like, wow, I was trying to solve a problem there and I really didn't know how. I'm glad you liked it.
Threw that against the wall.
Exactly. And that's honestly just how it works. That's kind of not going to be comforting for people who are thinking of getting into this, but that's honestly the only thing that's going to make you better is just to jump in and start trying stuff.
I really like I'm trying not we went from a Shrek podcast to a D&D podcast and now we're a self-help podcast now. Like
Yep.
here, like I am a firm believer of like if you want to do something, like just jump in and do it. With this podcast, I go on a Blue Sky, I go on Twitter, and I just type in podcast recommendations just to be like comment, like see if anybody is looking for something along this lines, and then I'll just comment, be like, hey, if you're interested, check our stuff out. And you would not believe the amount of people that are like, hey, I want to start a podcast. What should I start a podcast on? And like every single time that I see that, I feel sad and I immediately comment underneath, like saying, hey, if you are all asking other people what you should start a podcast on, you shouldn't start one. This is a very niche subject, dragon movies and television podcast. And I would not trade this for the world. Like I love being able to just sit down and talk about, and like when I tell coworkers, when I tell friends, when I go on dates and tell them the weird look, they're like, like how many movies are there actually? And I'm like, there's over 200. Are they all gold? Absolutely not. But like the fact of the matter is, like, I love doing this, and if it wasn't for like Austin and I could have quit after 10 episodes, but I love this. I believe in the idea of it, and I'm continuing to do it. And it really is like if you keep doing it. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm a good podcaster, like, but I know that I'm a lot better than I was back in those first episodes that I was doing. And it really just comes down to like, I think it's like the 30-minute rule. If you do something 30 minutes every day, like you're going to be getting better. And I'm not going to mathematically tell you what that's looking like, but it's the same with DMing. Like, even like I know that you've certainly been at this point where you just feel so overwhelmed with what you're trying to do, where you're focused on trying to build an immense world where your players are interacting, but you're also trying to like tie their backstories in, and you're trying to make it so everyone's still feeling involved while trying to pursue an arc. And it sometimes feels like you're juggling plates while they're on fire, like it and I've definitely been there, and it's when like, okay, like I can either just give up on this game that has brought me so much joy and happiness, or you just push through and you learn from it and you just get that much better from it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you're so right. Just trying things. I mean, that's where most people get stuck. I think that's where everybody gets stuck because when it's you, it matters more.
Yes.
You know, nobody is comfortable. Nobody is born comfortable with putting themselves out there. I think, like, bringing it back to another favorite subject of Brandon Sanderson.
Mr. Sanderson.
Yeah, I mean, in his lectures about being a professional author and you know, kind of his specialty is how do you actually exist and make a living off of this as a professional author? One of the things he talks about is that at some level, until you've got name recognition, it absolutely is a crapshoot. And it takes real luck to become like a known name. It takes incredible luck to get there. But another thing that he kind of cuts that with is like, okay, so if only 1 in 100 people who write a novel and sell it and it gets published, the thing is that of the people who say they would like to write a novel or they would like to be an author, maybe only 1 in 100 of them actually finish a novel. And so it's a matter of like breaking it down into pieces and just starting one of the pieces, and that's something I struggle with. I'm working on my like online social media presence because that's the only way that this shtick grows, and getting through the discomfort of hearing your own voice recorded, and nothing is easy.
No.
Nothing is easy. Nobody is born knowing that they're going to be good at something and just going ahead and doing it. DMing is absolutely the same. I've seen people who had fantastic ideas for campaigns that never happened because they didn't start. They got stuck on the world building, they got stuck on the plot, and they never made it happen.
It's so sad to me. Again, like, yes, guys, this is now a self-help podcast, but
You're welcome.
the amount of people that I have seen justify like being willing to like go for the Powerball or like gamble, like, well, yeah, the likelihood, like, but they won't take that same likelihood of doing something that they're passionate about. Like, I think, like, I don't know if I think I've told you this, but I have been now almost 3 years sober because of just some personal things that have gone on and happened. And since that happened, I've realized, like, one, I have the mental capacity to really start picking up these hobbies more that I love and like really pouring my heart and soul into it. And like also just because of things that I've gone through in the past, I'm like, what's the worst thing that can happen? I might embarrass myself. I'm wearing a shirt that's going down to my belly button right now. That's gold paisley. I don't care about embarrassing myself. Like the amount of people that's at work that are like, "Oh, you're like a nerd," and I'm like, "Yeah." Yeah. Like and it's I think, and again, like, I know I'm not telling people that it's easy, but the sooner that you're able to just accept who you are, and not only accept who you are, but love the fact that you're into it, the happier you're going to be and the better off, because there's so many people that hear like they want to be happy doing the things they do. You're not going to be happy like if you hate your job. Like, yes, there's a whole economic portion of it, but there's also, I think, enough people out there that are not willing to put themselves out and pursue something that they actually love and enjoy, because it's more comfortable to stick with the 9 to 5 job or just stick with the job that's boring to them, but it pays the bills. And again, I'm not telling you like quit your job and go and take an adventure over here.
Shit's hard out here.
Shit's hard. Shit is hard. But at the same time, like if you truly love something, if you truly want to pursue it, it's going to sit there on the shelf until you actually take it off the shelf. Like if you want it to be something, it's not going to, it's like a plant. It's not going to water itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never heard a story of somebody on their deathbed regretting embarrassing themselves ever. I've never heard of that. So be embarrassing.
Exactly. Like it's funny because like when I go and work out, like bear with me, but when I go and work out, I take pre-workout and my pre-workout makes my brain like actively, like, I'm not saying that I go like hive mind or anything, but like my thoughts travel a lot faster. So I move subject to subject to subject. And I was just thinking again, like with June right around the corner, like Pride Month is going to be popping up. And with my particular job, like I know that celebrating Pride is very important to it, but also just with the nature of where I grew up and the communities that I've grow up with, I'm already just thinking about the sort of comments, and especially just the political climate that we're in, like how people are going to be treating Pride this year. And like I'm already trying to come up with like people act like Pride is like, oh, this is gay month. Like this, and in an extent it is. But I feel like Pride is a lot more about not only accepting who you are, but just being unafraid and unapologetic. And like for people that are like, well, why is there not a straight month? Why is there not? I am in a heterosexual relationship.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, that technically is Pride. Like if you're proud of who you are, like it's not about celebrating the fact that like it's all about one, loving yourself and knowing that you're surrounded by other people that are accepting of who you are. And I was even thinking like I am accepting of who I am as a person. I have surrounded myself with people who are accepting of them. Like, and that's what I think the true message of pride. And who knows? Maybe the people in my chat will say differently, but that's sort of just like my
Yeah.
people have shower thoughts. I have gym thoughts because of just how.
Because that theanine hits your brain and boom, everything's organized.
Well, temporarily.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think that, this is one of those aspects, like Pride Month is for everyone. Feminism is for men. That these ideas get misinterpreted as an opinion, when really just accepting who you are and joining the people who are different from you, who are accepting who they are, is so important, because we live in a society that wants us all to be, cog shaped, that wants us to be good workers who show up on time and have no existence outside of work, outside of what we generate for the stockholders. If nobody's going to reward you for being the best cog, who never ground, who never had a bad fit. In fact, nobody's going to even promote you or give you a decent living if you are the perfect cog. They're going to say, hey, you're perfect right where you are. We're never going to raise your pay. And you just have to be willing to take some risks. You have to be willing to, as you said, accept some of the things about yourself that don't fit in a box, because that's what you'll actually regret at the end of your life.
Yeah.
It's not that you didn't make enough money. You're going to regret that you didn't try performing in a drag show. Man, like, if dressing a certain way is what makes you tick, if creating stories about dragons trying to eat people and subjecting your friends to long-lasting trauma is your thing, if 3D printing insane shapes is your thing, whatever draws you, you've got to go after it.
For
and
sure.
You've got to accept it, because nobody's going to do that for you.
Well, and like, I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, Colby, but I think especially just like the day and age when you were growing up, it was so socially unacceptable to be into D&D. It was so socially unacceptable to be like, and I feel like for me, when I was graduating high school, that was like borderline the end of the line. Like, I was experiencing a lot of the, like, you like Lord of the Rings, the second most popular movie of all time. Nerd. Like, luckily, like, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings was starting to tear down those barriers, but like, I still experienced like, why are you like into this like dork shit over here? While my brother, like, he was Mr. Wrestling. Like, he is like the epitome of like what a Mormon athletic boy is supposed to be like. And he was openly like, yeah, I read manga. I love all these nerdy things. And it's like, that's one direction in society that I'm actually quite positive and like excited about, is that these sort of interests and loves are not becoming like, I don't want to say taboo, but it's acceptable to like it, and it's acceptable to base your entire personality around it.
Exactly. I'm super happy to be living now rather than in like the late 80s, where admitting to knowing what a 20-sided die is will get you literally attacked. But like, I don't want to, we're talking about like, just go for it. And both of us have like this online presence and stuff like that. Neither of us are huge, certainly, but like, I don't want to represent myself as like 100% success. I started D&D when I was 26. I can remember, now that I have spent so much time researching it and understanding the history of D&D, I realize there's a lot of different ways I could have come into this hobby, and different times when it was sort of offered to me. And I kind of wonder what would be different. How would I have approached it differently if I had joined that game when I was In 2013, when my roommate, who ended up being kind of a psycho, offered to run second edition for me, how different would it have been if I had tried Pathfinder in my freshman year of college? Like, I can look back year by year and say, well, I could have started playing when I was like 10 or 11, but that was also the same time when the church I was a part of would have said, oh, that's literal witchcraft, and you are probably sacrificing babies. There's a whole Tom Hanks movie about it.
Yeah.
An actual very young Tom Hanks movie about the dangers of D&D. But like, there, I could have been different. I could have tried this earlier and had so many more years of enjoying this hobby, having this be a part of me. And I remember there are times in my life where I was dreaming about a video game, because that's what I was playing. But I was dreaming about a video game that was detailed enough that you could make choices that mattered and have consequences to those choices. And I look back and I'm like, poor old me, past me, buddy, it exists. And it's cheaper than the video games that you're looking at, too.
Well, well.
The first hit's cheaper.
That's how they get you.
First one's free, buddy.
Let me tell you, this wasn't cheap. That wasn't cheap.
That wasn't cheap.
No, again, like I'm not gonna sit here and say like that. I know I have an online presence, and like I know I've said this so many times to you guys in the audience that I am so incredibly grateful to have this small community that I've accumulated and the small success that I've seen. And like I genuinely can't imagine what it would be like now that I have you guys around. Like, it's hard to think about like not like what it would be like to even have you. But there is a lot of truth behind of like you have to like you can't reach the peak without hitting rock bottom like that, like it that you're going to be doing that. And it's like I see so many people that like they have an idea, they want to do something, and they just pursue it, and then it gets hard. And like it's one of those things where like, let me tell you, like, again, not to be like bashed or anything, you think it was easy for me to learn how to edit videos and do the social media and like do all of that? But I just told myself like, no, I love doing this. I'm going to learn how to do it. And I don't want to disappoint the fans. But it's one of those things like if it's truly important to you, you will find a way to do it. Otherwise, if it's not that important to you, that's when you are willing to drop it. And I think it's just everybody has something that they are willing and able to find something passionate about. It's just the trick of finding that.
Yeah, and accepting it. Because we all have these preconceived notions of, I thought D&D was not my kind of nerd. Or I thought, there was a time when I thought it was literal witchcraft.
Oh, it is.
And then there was a time when I was like, I was so sensitive about being a nerd and being labeled that way that I just avoided anything that could get me labeled that way. And I was like, I don't want to try that out. I don't care how fun you say it is. I'm struggling enough as is.
Well, I will say this: if any of you people are listening to listen to this podcast with your Christian parents, I'm sorry, but when I listen to an episode about chaos magic, D&D is chaos magic. Like, I'm not even being ironic. If you listen to it is witchcraft. I'm sorry, I'm saying it. I'm a truther. D&D is witchcraft. It's just not the witchcraft people think it is.
Yeah. You have to get much higher level than either of us are before you start sacrificing babies.
We haven't been to Washington, D.C. yet. That's But speaking of sacrificing people, we have a dragon grade to do. So each week we do a dragon grade depicting a dragon that we cover in the podcast. We grade the dragon on 5 aspects. We grade it on design, special effects, character, film, and X factor. The grade ranges from 0 to 10, 0 being abysmal, 10 being incredible, with 5 being okay. We're going to be covering and doing a grade for Fallon's Chimera dragon.
Chimera dragon thing?
Exactly. The turkey, the chicken. Now, I mean, I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. This podcast, it's Calvin Ball. You do what you want. You make up the rules as you go along. Like, there's sure some set rules, but you can make some stuff up. I know we've already given a grade on the film in general, but I've also done in sort of these movies is given a grade on how the dragon actually influences the show. If that's something that you're wanting to do when giving them that, I'm totally okay with that. I just know, like, just particularly with like the level of drama, the level of things that we've discussed, I'm sure that something similar to that will come up. But I don't want it just to be coming like, oh yeah, we gave it a 7 last time, we're giving it a 7. No, it's a 6. That
Fallon dragon.
Not the Fallon dragon. The shapeshifters are stupid. I know it's a 6. But Colby, on a scale of 0 to 10, what do you give the design of Fallon's dragon?
I think that I'm gonna give it a 7.
Okay.
For sheer off-puttingness, because it's an ugly looking thing. Especially the first few times you see it, it takes a few appearances before you see like a full body, here's what it actually looks like. And it honestly makes a little bit more sense when you see the whole thing. Yeah, I think that it's very original and it's very creepy, which I think is exactly right for the job it's doing in this show.
Yes, it's very unnatural. You can definitely I feel like this is more unnatural and creepy than like what a zombie dragon would be like.
Yeah.
Like I don't really understand why. Like, something about the feathers, just like the feathers are off-putting. Like Fallon's face, like the facial expressions she's making. It's the way, again, like Matt Mercer is just living rent-free in our heads for the rest of this episode. But like the faces that Matt would make when depicting Raishan were very similar. I don't know if you were picking up and seeing like when she was like creepily smiling and like slithering along. Like it literally looked like Matt Mercer's faces that he would make when like role playing as Raishan. Yes. And she's just so off-putting and just so clearly like, it's not even that she's like bestially evil. Like she is taking pleasure in killing these people and like killing them in brutal ways. It's not even like subtle animalistic. Like I said, she jumps off the building with him in her claws and then smashes their head into the cement. Like, this is dark shit. So I love this. And it's got the wings. I don't know where the wings came from, but the wings are back. I am giving it an 8. Like, I think it's great. I think it's really good. Fallon, like, is just selling me on this. Like, it's...
Yeah. Well, and, I mean, where did the feathers even come from? Why feathers?
Why feathers? Why what? They're chicken. They look like chicken feathers. I haven't seen a chicken in this show yet.
Fair.
But Colby, on a scale of 0 to 10, what are you giving the special effects?
I think, again, this is a strong point for their animation style being very sort of evocative rather than, texture, not text. They don't care if the anatomy looks right in every frame. They are capturing movement and posture and stuff like that. So, again, I think in the framework of animation, and it's all just hand drawn and stuff like that, but I think it was handled nearly perfectly. I'd give that an 8 again.
Okay. No, I'm actually very similar along this. Going back, you can tell that this was what they were building up to. Like the Red Dragon, that was the taste. Like you can see there is a quality difference between the Red Dragon there and Fallon's Red Dragon. The amount of detail in its movement, the amount of detail, just the fact that she's making facial expressions and like you can see she's communicating with her eyes. Like there is clearly a lot of effort going into it. I have to do it. Like I'm giving it the 8 as well. Like 8 is great. Nice. It's great. She's like this is like they clearly like I was a little disappointed. I gave it the 5 when it was just the Red Dragon, but you just have to have that Fallon special over there.
Yeah, well, and I think you're absolutely right. They were building up to this because our first looks at the dragon, especially in the very first episode, you hardly can see anything at all, and it's twisted and it's moving strangely, and I think that was a good choice at that time in terms of trying to make it seem monstrous by giving up on some of its realism. You can't do this with a anatomically correct CGI dragon like in Reign of Fire or like in Game of Thrones. They were going for, you can believe this is a thing in the world. I don't believe that that is a real thing. And that actually works better when we're talking about it as a monster, as something that should be horrifying. So yeah.
No, I completely agree on that front because like this is more terrifying than Drogon. This is more terrifying than like Durza's dark magic dragon in Aragon. Like this thing is like so off-putting, but it's clearly fake. But at the same time, like it's like again, like I know this is completely different from Berserk, but Berserk has some of the visually most like disturbing things I've ever seen in my life. And it's a cartoon that was made in the 90s. Like
Yep.
it still like evoked such, I don't want to say fear, but just like such strong emotions that are like, I am disturbed. I am like, this is wrong. And it's a cartoon and this is wrong. Colby, I'm really curious about this next one. For what do you give the character of Fallon Dragon? Now,
Yeah.
I have thoughts on it, but I want to give you the floor first because I'm being selfish this time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that there's a score I can be 100% confident about in terms of this dragon as a character because I haven't seen it yet. And I think that I have hopes for this. And what I've seen so far is, the juxtaposition of a couple episodes before we see Fallon being this angel of a human being, almost in a way that it feels like the film or the show is idealizing her in the same way that her brother does. She's this angelic being who's perfectly selfless, and we're seeing, she's obviously more complicated than that, maybe a bit, but then it's like snap of a finger, immediately she goes into this killing rage. She's completely subsumed by whatever this is. Whether that is, this is just the dragon wearing Fallon's face at this point, whether this is Fallon herself, whether they're doing something with like mixing the souls and there's no difference anymore. I think that it's very effective in terms of creating mystery. That huge shift. And you could really only do it with the perfect, beautiful, selfless cleric getting turned into a monster is excellent. So I really appreciate that. I'm going to give character an 8 as well.
Well, yeah. I just want to comment, like, this, again, could be a conversation that we could deviate on. I love the idea of the big bad evil villain being, like, a dark cleric. Like, the idea of, like, a lich cleric, just, like, I want to eventually make, like, a lich cleric because I feel like there's so much potential there and just so much, like, oh, I think that could be something juicy. Like,
I want to see Brendan Lee Mulligan do that because,
ooh.
the bad guy is always capitalism, but I'm sure he could do the bad guy is always organized religion.
What are you talking about? I don't see it. I don't see it. Okay, no, I do like very much see where you're coming from, and I'm very much in the same boat. I really like where they're seeming to take this. I really like what they're doing with Fallon's character, where it's just such a different. It's just so different what they're doing with her. I am a little nervous though because like if it does go the route of like she is trapped in there, like if that when she called out for help to Laios, if that is like actually her rather than her just manipulating, I'm not gonna lie, that's gonna hurt her character, like this character, a lot for me. So I am not necessarily willing to be putting all my chips on there and say I'm all in with you, but I'm echoing all the same sentiment. I maybe we come back at the end of this series and we give the final grade on her and it changes, but I'm willing to say it's good. Like I think a 6 is at least very, very
Mm-hmm.
doable for this. And I want to be proven that you are completely right over here and that I'm being too hesitant.
Yeah, there's so much right now that feels like it comes down to whether we get the pumpkin spice ending or the weird ass ending or the really dark ending. And I think you're right to hold back final judgment until we get there.
Because like again, I would love it if it is just like she's just gone and that but like this dragon can see that she can manipulate Laios, and like I want that to be the case, but I just keep getting this sinking feeling that it's going to be like the power of love and friendship and brotherhood and sisterhood is going to save this child today.
Yeah. Yeah, and if the dragon ends up going back to basically being an animalistic non-character, I'm going to be so disappointed.
I'm not going to stop watching. Who am I kidding?
It's got dragons in it. You can't stop watching.
I will be not smiling while I watch this. I'll have you know, Netflix. I will be so dissatisfied while I still stay glued to the TV. I'm not going to like it. Like a Christian man watching gay porn, let me tell you.
I'm going to disapprove so hard. It's not going to change what I'm doing, but...
Am I going to change it? Nope. So the film score, and like I said, we put that little caveat that it could be just specifically where she's popping up here. You can do how she's affecting the story right now. Like really, again, like you can grade it whatever grade you want to give here, as long as you can sell it to me. I don't care.
Okay, I'm gonna correct slightly for the fact that there were so many things that I liked so much, and this is where I'm going to work in my fears for where this story is going.
Okay.
Because again, so if I graded the last one, if I graded the character based on what it could be, I'm going to grade film based on where I am so worried and also kind of confident that it is going to go.
Okay. So
I'm going to give that a 4, just in terms of like this could go so mediocre. And if it gives us the pumpkin spice, the basic bitch ending, where it's the power of friendship that they finally get her out and everybody's the good guys and they've defeated the evil guys, that would be very, very disappointing for me. And I feel like that's exactly what they're setting up. And that's so mediocre, especially after having a show that, you know, from the very first episode onward, everybody who watches it is like, what the hell is this? This is meta as shit. This is weird. This is like, you don't get to follow that up with the power of friendship, you know?
Yes. I agree with you completely. It's funny because I feel like we're almost a little bit trading places because, and I'll talk you through this. I'm being a little bit more generous on this one. Well, I say a little bit more generous. I'm giving it a 6. I'm giving it the same as it. I think it's good. And hear me out. Like I completely, again, agree with what you're saying there. And but at the same time, every time she is coming on the screen ever since episode 13, so episode 13 and then episode 17, banger episodes, like easily like the 2 best episodes when she's popping up. So clearly they are not holding back the brakes right now. And like, even if they're like, I'm not going to sit here and say like, if it ends up being like, oh, the power of friendship is what, like, I'll be disappointed. But if there's enough blood to wash away, like I'm okay. Like, but like because these episodes are dark. Like when the Mad Mage is like, you're in the wrong form, and like starts more like without like no consent whatsoever, just completely start like that was metal. And then like when she's over there just killing everybody, like the amount of blood and carnage and just the pure joy and happiness that she has on her face. Again, like this is like, I love dark fantasy. Dark fantasy is like my shit. So when I see this, I get excited. I feel like we are not seeing the last of it. I will say this these 6 episodes versus the first 6 episodes, the likelihood of an episode being better in the first 6 was more likely, but the highs were a lot higher. Like the average
Mm-hmm.
in the first 6 episodes was better. Wow. I'm sure there's scientific terms that I'm completely blanking on. The mean and the
Yeah, science.
science. But yeah, that's why I'm giving it the 6 there, because like
Mm-hmm.
I think what this dragon is bringing, it's bringing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which brings us to the final score of the X Factor.
Yeah. So last time, I gave it a 9 on the X Factor, and I think I've kind of covered the same things that I was talking about in the X Factor last time, and there's something that we keep glossing over ever so slightly when it comes to this show, especially when Fallon is on the screen. Because you're right, you get really good episodes. It's metal as fuck. Also, the fan service is real cringy.
You say cringy, I say.
No, and I feel like there's some part of me that really wishes that wasn't there, and I get that it's kind of part of the art form at this juncture, but you know, I don't know if anyone is listening to this and deciding whether or not to watch this. If you are weirded out by characters being sexualized, these are going to be hard episodes for you. Because every time Fallon is on screen, someone, whether it's her or someone else, is getting very sexualized in really odd ways.
Bathtub scene.
The bathtub scene, you know, the moment that she and Marcel like reunited, I was like, is that why she's motivated? Because they're just in a relationship? No, the show just really wants us to be horny for it, but it's, I don't know. So like, I'm gonna tax the score on the X Factor here because I don't like fan service. And this episode, I was literally scrubbing through it on Netflix, just trying to find like a full body image of the dragon, and boom, harpies. Which, like, historically, again, weirdly sexualized creatures, and no different in this show whatsoever. And I don't appreciate it, and I think somebody should tax it on that basis.
Well,
So I'm gonna give the X Factor a 3 here.
all right.
I think the fan service is quite bad.
Well, Colby, call me a libertarian because I want to cut those taxes. Taxation is theft.
You'll pry my anime titties out of my cold dead hands.
First they came for the green M&M. Now they're coming for my Fallon dragon. I here's the thing. I will say, because especially we were saying in the first 6 episodes, they were staying away from fan service. I don't know what it is particularly about Fallon. Well, and the one like demon person that's part of Shiro's,
Yes.
like she's oddly sexualized as well. But like those are the
Yes.
2 characters that are like the sexualized characters, and I really don't understand why Fallon, like, and again, that we could have a whole conversation about what, like, just sex in general in Japanese culture, because it is so different from America.
It is so different.
Like,
I'm sure I could spend a long time trying to peel it apart, but I'm not the right person to talk about that because I think it's it's weird.
Like,
but I agree. I mean, they set Fallon up to be this angelic figure, and then again, every single time she's on screen, she's sexualized, and it's so weird for me that is a way that they're trying to make her seem more virtuous, or if there's just something that I'm missing there. Maybe I don't have the cultural context for this. I'm sure that's likely it, but at the same time, it's a stumbling block for me.
yeah, I mean, like, just thinking back at Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball, like, just think of like those are kids shows, like, as much as I love them, and the women in there are super sexual. Like Master Yoshi or whatever the guy's, he's like grabbing ass every other episode. Like he's grabbing like it, I don't understand. Like, now I also do okay, I shouldn't say I know. I've read articles about how like people in Japan are not having children. Like there's a lot of people that are becoming isolated and they're just not having children. And like maybe if you're trying to be all this is like a tinfoil that's not really tinfoil. Like maybe the media is just trying to like hey, look at that.
Yeah.
That's hot. Like, don't you want that? But I think like I don't know. It's just so different, and like they just view sex and just sexualize like women in such a weird way. And it's almost every show. Almost every show has a level of fan service. Like the show that has the least amount of fan service is again Death Note. But I think that's just because Death Note is such a serious show. Well, and Berserk, but that's a whole nother reason why. But again, like I do find it interesting because like to me, it's giving me like this Fallon dragon is very much giving me Sphinx vibes, like specifically the Sphinx. And like I know you don't really actually see it, but it's a Sphinx that's like a statue in the Never Ending Story, where it's like these huge like muscular lion legs, and it's got the big old titties over there. And Austin and I even talked about it on the podcast. Like, they knew what they were doing. Like, this is a children's movie, and these statues have pointed nipples over here. Like,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
huge, like, where's your complaints about that, Colby? Where's your complaints?
I will never defend anything that was done in the fantasy realm in the 80s.
They did nothing wrong, Colby. They did nothing wrong during those times.
They invented a vibe, and that's all we need to take from it. Is the vibe.
So, I mean, on one hand, it is unique because we haven't seen a dragon as hypersexual. Like the closest we've seen to a hypersexual dragon is Dragon from Shrek, and they do like an awesome job of doing that. But at the same time, like this is clearly like borderline hentai, like sex appeal. Like Bad Dragon is frantically scribbling notes over here, trying to come up with a new product line. So that's very unique. But at the same time, like we've said, fan service is not unique in anime. So I'm falling down, and I'm going to give the X Factor as a 7. I think it's very good because taxation is a theft, Colby. That's which gives us a final score for Fallon the Dragon as a 6.5, which is between good and very good, which I don't know about you, Colby. I think that's very appropriate for Fallon's Dragon. But
I agree.
That is our episode. We did make it over the 2-hour mark. I think I spoke a little too soon, but we didn't go over 3 hours, which progress.
Hey,
Colby, do you want to plug your stuff before we get out of here for this evening?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just mention go on Rock Paper Science on YouTube, watch our Delta Green live stream. We're on a break for a few weeks here, so the episodes that are up are going to be it for a second, and then come check me out over at Start Playing. I still don't have any openings, but I am always happy to be talking to new people who are into this whole world.
Do you have a wait list, Colby?
I don't have a way to have a wait list. Maybe I should. I don't know. Maybe I should, because I was running a bunch of games for people brand new to D&D, and so many of them were like, "Yeah, I want more," and I was like, "I have no way to offer that to you." Congratulations, this is all you get.
You can book 6 years from now. No, for sure. Like, everyone go check out Colby's stuff, and I'm excited because we've got one more week of talking about Delicious in Dungeon. And I don't know what we're walking into. I have not seen what we're walking into.
Same here. I think I've watched as far as like episode 20 at this point. So it could still have... There's plenty left for me to figure out about this. Plus, if they're doing more seasons, all bets are off.
All bets are off. But in the meantime, guys, go ahead, like, share, subscribe, the whole shebang, and also comment below. Option number 1, option number 2, option number 3, or option number 4 to Dancing Laios.
Yes, Sax Guy, Funk, Pedro, or the Shoe Body Bop, my personal favorite.
You guys know what to do. Have a good night, y'all.
That's all for this week's Dragon Lore. Takes cold and hot, spread shore to shore. Enjoyed yourself? Please join the squad. Follow on social media at BigLizPod. And one quick reminder before you go, to rate, review, and share the show. Thank you for listening. It means a lot. See you next week, same time, same spot.